If you've ever stood in the meat aisle just staring at that super pricey grass-fed steak, you've probably wondered, is this whole thing just hype? Well, today we are going to cut right through all that noise and get to the real beef on grass-fed versus grain-fed.
So, picture this. You're at the store and you're faced with this exact choice. It's a decision that, believe it or not, touches on your health, your wallet, and even the planet. So let's break it down and see if that premium price tag actually means you're getting a better product.
Okay, first things first, let's get our terms straight. The real difference here is all about diet and lifestyle. Grass-fed cattle, they spend their entire lives out on pasture, just grazing. Grain-fed cattle, they start out on pasture too, but then they're moved to feedlots for the last few months to get finished on this high-energy diet of corn and soy. This one little change is the reason for every single difference we're about to talk about.
All right, to really figure this out, we're going to frame this as a head-to-head competition, a showdown in 3 rounds: nutrition, planet Earth, and the price. And then at the very end, we'll deliver the final verdict. Let's get into it.
Kicking things off with round 1, nutrition. Now, this is where most of the debate really happens, and it pretty much all comes down to a tale of 2 different types of fats.
I'm going to start with just one thing, a single, powerful number, 5x. What on earth could that possibly refer to?
And here's the big reveal. Grass-fed beef can pack up to 5 times more omega-3 fatty acids. These are those super healthy anti-inflammatory fats you always hear about in salmon and flaxseed. We're talking better brain health, less inflammation. A grass diet just dramatically changes the fat profile of the steak that ends up on your plate.
But hold on, it is not that simple. This is a trade-off. See, grass-fed beef has a much better omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, around 2 to 1, which is fantastic for fighting inflammation. It's also higher in antioxidants. But grain-fed beef has its own secret weapon. All that extra fat means it's richer in monounsaturated fats, like oleic acid. That's the same heart-healthy fat you find in olive oil.
And of course, that difference in fat has a huge impact on taste. The beautiful marbling you see in grain-fed beef, that's what gives it that rich, buttery, umami flavor that just crushes it in taste tests. Grass-fed, on the other hand, it has a much more distinct, grassy, or sometimes even gamey taste. And that yellowish fat you might notice, that actually comes from all the carotenoids in the plants the cows are eating.
So, who wins round 1? Well, a 2022 study in the Journal of Animal Science really says it best. There is no clear winner. They found neither system is superior. It really just depends on what you're looking for in your diet. Are you prioritizing more omega-3s, or are you after more monounsaturated fats? So for nutrition, we're going to have to call it a draw.
Let's move on to round 2, planet Earth. Now, this is where things get really complex and, honestly, pretty counterintuitive. The environmental story is definitely not as black and white as you might think.
All right, let's start with greenhouse gases. You'd probably assume grass-fed is the greener choice, right? Well, not so fast. Because grass-fed cattle take longer to grow, they actually spend more time just, being cows. And that means they release more methane, a really potent greenhouse gas over their lifetime. Some studies show it can be up to 30% more per kilogram of beef.
And you see the exact same logic when it comes to land. The grain-fed system is incredibly efficient, packing animals into feedlots, but the grass-fed system, by its very nature, needs huge amounts of pasture. Research shows it can take up to 2.5 times more land to produce the exact same amount of beef, and that raises some serious questions about things like deforestation and habitat loss. But here's the plot twist: water. We're looking at what's called conserved water. That's water that's pulled from rivers and aquifers for irrigation, and the grain-fed system is incredibly thirsty. Why? Because you have to grow all that corn and soy for the cattle feed, and that takes a massive amount of water. In this category, the grass-fed system, which mostly just relies on natural rainfall, is the hands-down decisive winner.
And now for our final round, the one we all feel directly in our wallets: the price. Let's dig into exactly why you end up paying such a premium for that grass-fed steak.
It's actually pretty simple. A diet of grass just isn't as energy-dense as grain. So grass-fed cattle take a lot longer to grow. We're talking anywhere from 7 to 12 months longer. That's almost a whole extra year of labor, land, and resources that gets baked right into the final price tag.
So it all comes down to basic economics. Think of the grain-fed system as this super efficient industrial machine, using economies of scale to make beef faster and cheaper. The grass-fed model, on the other hand, is more like an artisanal craft. Its entire business model depends on you, the customer, being willing to pay that extra premium to cover all its higher costs and that slower process.
Okay, we've been through all 3 rounds. We've weighed the nutritional trade-offs, we've seen the surprising twists in the environmental story, and we've looked at the clear economics of the price. So, it is time for the final verdict.
The final answer is, there is no single winner. It is a classic case of trade-offs through and through. If you want those higher omega-3s and you care about water conservation, grass-fed is your choice. But you have to accept the higher price, the gamier flavor, and the bigger footprint when it comes to land and methane. If you prioritize taste, a lower price, and using less land, then grain-fed wins, but you're getting a poorer fat ratio and using a ton of conserved water.
Ultimately, what this all means is that the best beef is entirely up to you. It all comes down to a personal calculation. What matters most to you? Is it the specific nutrition, a certain environmental factor like water or land use? Is it the taste, or is it simply the cost? There is just no one-size-fits-all answer here.
So maybe the question itself is the problem. Maybe the future isn't about choosing one extreme over the other. As some researchers are suggesting, the real innovation might be in hybrid systems, like finishing pasture-raised cattle on grain for just a short amount of time, that could actually merge the best of both worlds. And that leaves us with a final thought. Instead of versus, maybe what we should really be looking for is a better balance.